Hi everyone, this is part 2 for drawing maxillary right first molar. In this part, I demonstrate the procedure for drawing mesial, distal, and occlusal aspects.
Now we move to the mesial aspect. I marked the crown length at 30 millimeters, the lingual root length this is for the lingual root, at 52, and the buccal root at 48. From the mesial aspect, only 3 cusps are visible: the mesobuccal, mesolingual, and the 5th cusp. And only 2 roots are visible: the mesobuccal root and the lingual root. The crest of curvature buccally is located in the cervical third, about 1.5 millimeter below the cervical line, which equals 6 millimeter after magnification. And the lingual crest of contour is located approximately 3 millimeters in the middle, near the middle of the crown, at 3 millimeters below the cervical line. I will draw it at 13 millimeters on the graph paper. So I marked 20 toward the lingual and 20 toward the buccal. This is the buccolingual diameter at cervix. To mark the buccolingual diameter at the crest of contour, I will mark then and 22 toward the buccal and 22 toward the lingual.
Now there is a rule to locate the position of the cusp tip of the buccal cusp of maxillary molars. They are located at about 1/6 the buccolingual dimension. So I would mark 1/6 the distance toward the midline.
So I will go from the buccal crest of contour 2 millimeters toward the midline, and after magnification this will equal 8 millimeters. So I will go 8 millimeters, put a mark, drop a line on the occlusal plane, and this will be the position of the mesobuccal cusp. So I will do this now. I will go at the line of the crest of contour. I will go 8 millimeters toward the midline, and then drop perpendicular to the occlusal plane. This will be the position of the mesobuccal cusp. To locate the position of the mesolingual cusp, there is a rule for the posterior teeth, which is 9 to 5. 9 represent the greatest buccolingual dimension, and 5 is the distance between the buccal and lingual cusp. You can see that the distance between the buccal and lingual cusp is slightly greater than half the buccolingual dimension of each tooth. So in case of the maxillary first molar, the buccolingual dimension is 11. 6 millimeter would be slightly greater than half of 11. So we will take 6 millimeter as the distance between the two cusp tips. After magnification, it will equal 24. From this point of the mesobuccal cusp, I will go 24 millimeters toward the lingual. This is the position of the mesiolingual cusp. Now the 5th cusp is about 2 millimeters or 8 millimeters after magnification above the position of the mesiolingual cusp. So this will be the position of the 5th cusp. Finally, the mesial marginal ridge is located 1.5 millimeter above the occlusal line. After magnification equals 6, and it is also in the middle between the distance between mesobuccal and mesolingual cusp. So it will be slightly toward the buccal. So I'll go 6 millimeter up and 2 millimeters toward the buccal. This is the position of the mesial marginal ridge. Now I'll draw the outlines according to the information in the text. This will be convex from the cervical line to the buccal crest of contour. Then it will be relatively straight toward the tip of the mesobuccal cusp. Lingually, it will follow a smooth curved line from the cervical line to the mesolingual cusp. There will be the 5th cusp in the way. So this is how we draw the 5th cusp. Then we will continue with the outline of the mesiolingual cusp. Now the slopes will continue with the mesial marginal ridge. And finally, I will draw the curvature of the cervical line, which is 1 millimeter after magnification equals 4. Now I will draw the roots two roots are seen from the mesial aspect, the mesobuccal and the lingual. The lingual root is narrow and banana-shaped from this aspect. It is 1 millimeter longer than the mesobuccal, which is broad, occupy 2/3 of the crown or tooth dimension. So it will occupy about 24 millimeters toward or beyond the midline, and also at 16 millimeter above the cervical line. The apex of the mesobuccal root is in line with the mesobuccal cusp tip, while the apex of the lingual root is in line with the ridge of the fifth cusp. The buccolingual dimension of the root from this aspect is in line with the greatest buccolingual dimension of the crown. So first I will mark the confines of the root. The point of bifurcation will be 4 millimeter above the cervical line, about 16 millimeter, and slightly toward the lingual, about 4 or 5 millimeters toward the lingual. So this is the point of bifurcation. The apex of the mesobuccal root is in line with the mesobuccal cusp. The apex of the lingual root is in line with the slope or ridge of the fifth cusp. Now we'll draw the outline. So first, the mesobuccal root outline is slightly concave until it reaches the middle third. The lingual root outline is more concave above the cervical line, then become convex approaching the middle third. Then both will continue into a blunt apex. Of course, the mesobuccal root is shorter than the lingual root. From the apex to the point of bifurcation, both roots show a concave outline. Now moving to the distal aspect, I marked the crown length, the root length. This is the lingual root, and this is the distal buccal root. Also, I marked the buccolingual dimension across the cervix, which is 20 toward the buccal. This is the buccal, this is the lingual, 20 toward the lingual. I moved 6 millimeters down to mark the position of the buccal crest of contour at 22, and here 13 millimeters below the cervical line to mark 22 for the lingual crest of contour or crest of curvature. I moved 8 millimeters toward the midline and dropped a line to mark the position of the distal buccal cusp. Then I moved about 28 millimeters backward to mark the position of the distal lingual cusp. Now I'll draw the outlines. Of course, the distal marginal ridge is 1.5 millimeters, about 6 millimeters after magnification above the occlusal line and nearly in the middle. So I'll draw the outlines. It is somewhat irregular because part of the buccal aspect can be seen. This is the tip of the distal buccal cusp. Then here it will be more convex toward the distal lingual cusp tip. Then they will become confluent with the distal marginal ridge. Also, we can see the slope of the mesiolingual cusp, and this will be the slope of the distal lingual cusp. Here we can see the buccal developmental groove, as we said, because of the distal tapering of the distal aspect. The curvature of the cervical line is almost non-existing, so draw it as a straight line. Now regarding the roots, the three roots can be seen from this aspect because the distal buccal root is narrower than the mesobuccal, so it can be seen. The mesobuccal root can be seen in the background. The lingual root, of course, is longer. The bifurcation here is located at a higher level about 5 millimeters above the cervical line after magnification equals 20, also slightly toward the lingual. The apex of the lingual root is in line with the distal lingual cusp, while the apex of the distobuccal root is slightly toward the lingual from the distobuccal cusp tip. As mentioned before, the greatest buccolingual dimension are within the confines of the greatest buccolingual dimension of the crown. The bifurcation is located at 20 millimeters above the cervical line, slightly toward the lingual. The outline of the distobuccal root is seen superimposing the outline of the mesial root. Finally, I will draw the occlusal aspect in the middle of the graph record. The main characteristic feature of the maxillary first molar is that it is wider mesially than distally, and it is wider lingually than buccally. This gives it a rhomboidal geometric outline from the occlusal aspect. So this should be reflected in the drawing. So first I will mark the greatest buccolingual and mesodistal dimension. Now I would locate the estimated position of the four cusps. As you can see, the four cusps can be seen: mesobuccal, distobuccal, distolingual, mesiolingual, which is the largest. So the fifth cusp can be seen. So I will mark the estimated position of the cusp tip of each one. The buccal cusps are located in the middle between the midline and the outer boundary of the box. So this will be the estimated position. For the mesiolingual cusp, which is the largest, it occupies 3/5 the lingual dimension of the crown. So I will mark it at 4 millimeter distal to the midline. At the midpoint of this distance, I will mark the position of the tip of the mesiolingual cusp. This will be the position of the distal lingual cusp. Inside this box, I will draw roughly the outline of the crown, trying to make it similar to this graph or to this figure, mainly featuring how it is wider mesially than distally, wider lingually than buccally. Now I need to draw the occlusal table. The occlusal table is formed by the cusp ridges and the mesial and distal marginal ridges. So I will move the position into the estimated position into the exact position. Buccal cusps are located 1/6 the buccolingual dimension. This is about 8 millimeter toward the midline. So I'll move 8 millimeter and put a mark. This will be the tip of the mesobuccal cusp. Here also I will mark 8 millimeters toward the lingual, but I will start counting 8 from the outline of the crown, not from the box. So from here, the estimated position, I will go 8 millimeters. For the mesiolingual cusp, I will go about 1/3 the buccolingual crown dimension. I will go from the estimated position 12 millimeters and put a mark. This will be the cusp tip. For the distolingual, I will also go 8 millimeters. So I'll put a mark. So here 8, 8, 8, and here I went beyond the line by 12 millimeters. Now I will connect these points to form the occlusal table. Finally, I will draw the grooves. First, we have the lingual groove here at the estimated position of the boundary of the mesiolingual cusp. This is the lingual groove. join the distal oblique groove, which ends in the distal triangular fossa. Then we have the buccal groove separating the two buccal cusps. Will run and join the central groove, which will end in the mesial triangular fossa. This is the central fossa. This is the distal fossa. The distal and central fossa are joined by the transverse groove of the oblique ridge, which will run across the oblique ridge. The oblique ridge is drawn here. It's formed by the union of the triangular ridge of the distal buccal cusp and the distal cusp ridge of the mesiolingual cusp. Of course, each cusp has its own triangular ridge, but the unique feature here is the oblique ridge, which is unique for the maxillary molars. Also, you can mark the position of the fifth cusp. It can be seen here if it is present. The groove that separates the fifth cusp from the mesiolingual cusp can be marked. So these are the 5 aspects of the maxillary first molar. After you finish the drawing, don't forget to mark the labels. Give each anatomical landmark, the cusps, the grooves, and the roots a number, and repeat it whenever it applies.